What's up, guys? Tim Iaria again with another episode in this series that I'm doing on unsung eras in professional wrestling that were really great programming when it came down to whether it was the episodic television that they were doing or their pay-per-views, in a sequential order. The ones that I'm sticking away from, and I'm beating a dead horse, I've said it in all the other ones, but that's okay because not a lot of people are going to probably watch this anyway. But I'm trying to stick away from the Gorgeous George, the Buddy Rogers, the young Bruno Sammartinos. I refer to that as the golden age. Pro wrestling just getting into television when it's suit and tie. I'm sticking away from that. I'm sticking away from Hulk Hogan and the rock and wrestling era of pro wrestling. 1984, 1985, 86, obviously the worldwide boom in pro wrestling, and the Attitude Era, which was what people of my generation, in the millennials, the older millennials, people born in the early 80s, mid 80s, they remember the Attitude Era a lot from their teenage angst years. I had been watching for many years before the Attitude Era, like I talked about in other videos. But this is just sort of eras that I've seen in my life on television and in ordering pay-per-views. Like I ordered the very first ECW pay-per-view with my family. I remember vividly watching WrestleMania 8 in my living room. One of the earliest memories I have as a kid is watching WrestleMania 4, the tournament. One of those like early when you remember something from when you were like 2 years old or whatever. So that's the thing to talk about here is interesting times that don't get a lot of play in write-ups and magazines and articles and documentaries and such like that. Pro wrestling eras that you should be watching and check it out. If you're a fan of good wrestling and you're looking for something to watch, maybe let's say on the WWE Network. So today I'm going to be looking at ECW Extreme Championship Wrestling from 1998 and 1999. I'm not going to go over every single pay-per-view, every single supercard that they did like I usually go through. I got Wikipedia here open, that's really all I'm doing. I don't have anything written out, nothing pre-planned, just shooting from the hip, talking like I would if you were sitting here next to me in my garage, which is what we're doing. So ECW in 1998 and 1999. Important years for ECW. This was sort of their transition. They were very regional program in the Northeast here, Philadelphia based out of, obviously I had the opportunity, like I said in one of my other videos, to go to the old ECW arena and watch an ECW house show. You'd go, right in the part of Philly, there'd be prostitutes, there'd be people doing drugs on the street and stuff like that. It was, in the 90s, it was, it's a tough area. Philadelphia is, very, always, the fans are known as being very tough. And this is when they're sort of trying, the Attitude Era is going on right now, in early 98 and then in through the rest of 99. Stone Cold Steve Austin is hot. Degeneration X is doing their thing. NWO is doing their thing. The Monday Night Wars are coming on. ECW would get their own Monday night television show. ECW is starting to get their own pay-per-views together. So they were the third string quarterback here, trying to make a name for themselves, and they really did put on a lot of quality stuff. When people talk about ECW, I guess when a lot of gets made of the ECW that was in WWE at the time, they call it WWECW, and I guess sort of the end of ECW, people talk about a lot too. But this is, in my opinion, I talked about 95 ECW. This is some of my favorite stuff going on here. Again, you got a lot of great talent, a lot of good cards put together, and I'm going to look at some of them. Okay, so throughout 98, in our first supercard that we had, ECW House Party, you had Sabu and Sandman in the main event. Classic, again, Sabu and Sandman had stuck around ECW for a long time. Those guys were both in the video when I was talking about from 95. They were sort of stalwarts and guys that had been there from the beginning. Sandman had a bunch of championship reigns. I don't think they ever had Sabu. Maybe Sabu was the ECW champion. I know he had reigns as the tag champion a bunch of times, and he might have actually been a world champion. But again, two main event guys, a lot of talent there. You had Rob Van Dam and Sabu as a tag team. They were definitely tag team champions in ECW. were able to put on great matches. Rob Van Dam and Sabu versus Jinsei Shinzaki and Hayabusa. Jinsei Shinzaki, formerly known as Hakushi in the WWF. That's one of my favorite matches of all time. Again, going back to the whole chain wrestling and guys that can kind of flip flop and fly, but also know how to shoot and sort of have a little bit of amateur backgrounds. They were always able to put on a great match, and that's one of my favorites. So you should also check out. You had triple threat matches in the following Super Show that they did, Hostile City Showdown. That's also in January '98. You had Rob Van Dam and Sabu, like we're talking about, versus the Dudley Boys, versus the Gangstanators, versus Sandman and Tommy Dreamer. ECW is sort of famous for doing those big, giant, super tag team matches, and I like that they always had, if it was a tag team match or a tornado, they did a lot of tornado matches, so both guys in the team would have to be eliminated, or if it was a triple threat match, both of the 2 out of the 3 other guys had to get eliminated. They were always good at that. And Gangstanators was a funny tag team too, because that was New Jack and Cronus, formerly of the Gangsters, formerly of the Eliminators. They became the Gangstanators because Mustafa had left the company at the time, and I guess Saturn either left the company at the time to go. I think he probably had left the company to go to WCW at the time, so that was cool. They sort of put those guys together. They had at the time also in February of this year, you got Bam Bam Bigelow and Shane Douglas headlining a Super Show against Rob Van Dam and Sabu. Bam Bam Bigelow, I talked about again, is a local hometown hero around here, and the Triple Threat was an awesome faction that wrestling wrestlers are big on. That's like one of the ones that the old pros, guys like Kurt Hawkins and stuff like that. They're the type of guys that respect that faction and the gimmick and stuff like that. And I always liked it. I liked Lance Storm a lot. They had him, I believe, as a Triple Threat member, maybe for a little while. Shane Douglas, Chris Candido, no gimmicks needed. I love the whole gimmick of no gimmicks needed. But that's cool. And then they had, Bigelow had a title there for a while. Shane Douglas had the title for a while. Again, you're seeing a lot of Sandman and Tommy Dreamer on top, which is to be expected. Again, Tommy Dreamer at this time had probably still not won the world title. I don't think he won it until like the very, very end of his career, maybe at ECW. But he was always a bridesmaid, never a bride, one of those things. But so they're having him and the Dudley Boys in the main event. A lot of Dudley Boys main events too. You can see. So in May of '98, the Dudley Boys are in the main event against Spike Dudley, Sandman, and Tommy Dreamer. Again, Sandman and Tommy Dreamer. And then that's May 14th. May 15th, they have another Super Show, Dudley Boys versus Spike Dudley, Sandman, and Tommy Dreamer. So it's a lot of that. But the Dudley Boys, I think they're the only tag team to ever win like every tag title. They got like the IWGP tag, WCW tag, and WWF. WWF tag, every ECW tag, multiple times, TNA tag, and they're probably, I think they're one of the only teams that has won all. If you ever see them with like their belt collections, it's funny. It's like them holding every single title belt there ever was. Masato Tanaka's in the federation at the time. In September of '98, him, Rob Van Dam, and Sabu go against the Triple Threat: Shane Douglas, Bam Bam Bigelow, and Candido. That's an awesome main event. That's an awesome show. Masato Tanaka really took a lot of really hard bumps in his matches against Mike Awesome. So shout out to Masato Tanaka. Really, sang for his supper. And then Rob Van Dam works very well with that Japanese style. Sabu works well with that Japanese style. So it's cool pairing those guys up. They also did a ECW FMW Super Show in Japan in the end of that year, in December of '98. And again, you had guys like Hayabusa and Tommy Dreamer in a main event one night versus Rob Van Dam and Sabu, and Rob Van Dam and Sabu versus the Dudley Boys in another main event. I love Hayabusa. Was an awesome athlete. Another one of those in the vein of Great Muta and Jushin Thunder Liger and Tiger Mask, just like really influential Japanese dudes that had a mask. He ended up hurting himself really bad, I believe, in the ring. I think maybe he broke his neck or his spine, and I think he was paralyzed for a while and ended up, I'm pretty sure he passed away not too long ago, due to injuries that had gone on with, things that had attributed with that injury. but it's nice seeing him on a main event here. And then when we get into 99, okay, Sid comes into ECW at 99. That's another thing people don't talk about a lot, or gets forgotten about a lot, is that Sid had a very small run in ECW. It's fun him coming in. So this is January of 99. This must have been probably right in between a WWF at the time stint and a WCW stint. Maybe I'm thinking this might have been right after he left. Excuse me, during the Ahmed Johnson years, maybe, or the Shawn Michaels bodyguard years. And then, okay, so in February of 99 that year, at the event called Crossing the Line at the Elks Lodge 878 in New York City, New York, Rob Van Dam versus Jerry Lynn. That's my favorite match. Any one of those matches whenever those two guys wrestled, it didn't matter, again, if it's a pay-per-view, a house show, a super show, TV episode, whenever those two guys got together, to me, that's perfect. That's what I want to see. That's like a perfect pop, #1 hit. Rob Van Dam's got a little bit of the karate with the kicks and and Jerry Lynn, can do a lot of the stuff to the outside. Yeah, and I just really like those matches. So that's cool seeing that here in February of 99. They had the storyline where Mustafa comes back. Mustafa comes back and pays off the Dudley Boys, I believe, or something like that. And they fight New Jack and the Chair Swinging Freaks, which was Axel Rotten and Balls Mahoney. They brought Mustafa back to sort of feud with New Jack. He had paid, he had done something with money. He had a bunch of money, and he was paying the Dudley Boys to try to take him out or something like that. But that's a nice, if you can go to those weekly, ECW hardcore TVs or whatever, in the weeks leading up to April of 99, you'll see there's a nice little fun storyline about that. Nobody knew who it was, and then it turned out to be Mustafa and making a big return. That's cool. In June of 99, at the Hostile City Showdown, you had Jerry Lynn and Sabu against the Impact Players, which were Just Incredible and Lance Storm. Again, I'm a huge Lance Storm fan, and the Impact Players I thought were a good team. I wasn't a huge fan of Just Incredible. They had him as the top heel in the company for a little while and put the world title on him for a little while, and they had him beating everybody, beating Tommy Dreamer and beating Sandman and and I guess maybe with the attitude or something, he was a good veteran. I know he was a good worker and stuff. He was just never really my favorite. But Lance Storm, I'm a huge fan of, and those two guys as a tag team I thought worked very well, and they were good heels, kind of the cheating heels. So that's good. And anytime you can get Jerry Lynn and Lance Storm in a match together is money. In August of 99, you see Raven and Tommy Dreamer teaming up together for the first time, and in the main event at the Super Show in August of 99, the Dudley Boys go against Raven and Tommy Dreamer. That's a fun little storyline too. If you look up in the television around August of 1999, I forget exactly everything that happens with it, but they end up getting back to obviously they've been bitter enemies for years and years, and Tommy Dreamer's never beaten Raven, and then they get together. I think they end up winning the tag titles. It's the classic storyline that they do of the partners that are champions that hate each other. But I think for a little while they did have, they were sort of, together at least for a little bit. And then in October of that year, which is the last Super Show that they did, they had Raven and Tommy Dreamer again versus the Impact Players. So again, that's cool. That Raven and Tommy Dreamer were that was the biggest super group type team that they could put together of their biggest heel and their biggest baby face. That was their biggest feud and blah blah. Against the new team at the time. The Impact Players were definitely in their infancy in these years. They weren't together very long to begin with, but that's cool to see the old versus the new. And like I said, I'm a big Lance Storm fan. So ECW, like I said, is there's not as much ECW content on, let's say, something like the WWE Network. There's not as much content as, let's say, WCW stuff or WWE stuff, obviously, but I'm a big fan of the earlier ECW stuff, and I don't mean like Don Morocco versus Jimmy Superfly. It's not quite ECW. I mean like the 95, 94, 95 years was a lot of fun. Too Cold Scorpio and Young Taz and Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero. Also, my other video, I didn't get to talk about Chris Jericho's time in ECW. I really liked Chris Jericho's time when he was Lionheart, Chris Jericho coming in. That's when I first learned of Jericho. And, you know, he fit right in with those Lance Storms and Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty's that I was always into. So then I watched him go to WCW and have been a fan of him since. And in '99, I got to go around. You know, they were really bumping up shows that they were doing per year around this time. You know, they weren't doing as many house shows and super shows in '94, '95, but in '99, when, you know, cotton was high, they were doing shows all the time. So I was seeing ECW shows in Atlantic City, Asbury Park. I was seeing ECW shows in Philly, and I got to go to quite a few of them. Television tapings. I actually got on television. I wish I could find it's got to be somewhere. There's an ECW TV from Asbury Park, and there's like stands. You know, there's a stand, and then the steps, and then stands, and then steps. And me and my buddy were sitting in the steps where you shouldn't have been sitting. But for the whole show, facing the hard cam, it's me and my buddy sitting in the steps and just looking. So that's pretty funny. And I always liked ECW. It was something different. It was fresh. You know, no disqualifications ever. Which, you know, I can still remember being in like 6th grade, 1996, and, you know, to the people that didn't know anything even about WWF at the time, they had heard about ECW and they'd be like, oh, well, that's the real stuff. You know, that's where they're really, you know, they're killing each other and they're cutting each other open and bleeding and smashing through tables. So it had that mystique of, even though it wasn't, obviously it's you know, it's a work, it had the mystique of still being real because of how, you know, violent and stuff it was. And that was I know, a bone of contention. A lot of people talked at the time, you know, bad about how, you know, the blood and guts, they were just doing it for money and it was just sort of a freak show. But I thought they, you know, they were able to bring in good talent and put good matches together and put good shows together. And if you get a chance, like I was saying, you know, this is going to be a shorter video, I guess, than the last couple ones I've been doing. But if you're looking for something to, you know, bide your time with, if you're looking for new wrestling, maybe you haven't seen it yet, start digging in. You know, just start in January of '98 and work your way through some stuff, work your way through some shows in ECW, I mean, of course. And, you know, yeah, maybe you'll find out, you'll start getting turned on to some, you know, some talent that you didn't know from back then, or some great matches that you didn't know from back then. All right, I'll catch you guys probably tomorrow. I'll try to record some more. I got a couple more eras I want to do, and hopefully somebody gets a kick out of this. All right, bye.